He walked into the building with no security, no media, and no fanfare. Just a quiet heart and willing hands. What he didn't know was that the janitor he helped at midnight had once been the man who helped him rise from nothing. The clock above the old security monitor blinked 11:47 p.m. Inside the silent government building in Ouagadougou, the air hung heavy, the kind that settles after a long, hot day. Most lights were off, except for a few flickering bulbs humming softly in the hallway corners. A janitor named Samuel moved slowly down the corridor, his limp more pronounced tonight. His back ached from bending, lifting, sweeping, motions that had become second nature over the years, yet never grew easier. His uniform was faded, the name tag barely visible. But there was something dignified about him. Maybe it was the way he adjusted his cap every time he passed a framed photo of a past president, or the quiet way he whispered prayers when wiping down the national seal on the marble floor. Tonight, like every other night, Samuel worked alone. He reached for a large black trash bag stuffed full and tried to lift it. The bag resisted, like it carried more than just waste. He grunted and gave it another pull, this time losing balance for a second. His left knee buckled. He steadied himself against the wall, breathing hard. His hand trembled as he wiped sweat off his forehead. He didn't know the cameras were still on. In a forgotten security room 3 floors above, a CCTV monitor captured everything. The weak hallway light, the tired man, the weight of the bag, the way his fingers tightened around it, like he was holding something far heavier than trash. Samuel looked around. Not for help. He never expected that anymore. Just a habit. People stopped noticing him long ago. To most, he was just the man who emptied bins and mopped up the invisible stains of power. He finally managed to drag the bag behind him, the plastic scraping along the floor, echoing down the long corridor. As he reached the elevator, it blinked red. Out of order. He sighed, his chest rising slowly, like he was trying not to fall apart. Without a word, he turned toward the stairwell. The trash bag, still heavy, left a faint trail behind. As he placed one hand on the rusty railing, ready to haul himself up step by step, the building outside remained quiet, peaceful, unaware of the story quietly unfolding inside. The city slept. Samuel couldn't, because he knew what hunger looked like in his granddaughter's eyes, and he wasn't about to let her see it again. Outside the building, the stillness of the night was broken only by the soft rumble of an approaching engine. A sleek black SUV slowed near the side entrance. No sirens, no flashing lights, just silence. It rolled to a gentle stop under the shadows of the jacaranda trees lining the empty street. The driver stepped out first, scanned the surroundings quickly, then opened the rear door. From the back seat, Ibrahim Traoré emerged, wearing a simple gray hoodie over his white shirt, sleeves rolled up, no security detail in sight. His face looked tired but alert, like a man used to carrying too much without showing it. The emergency meeting had ended late, the kind that leaves your spirit heavy and your thoughts racing. He had told his driver not to follow. He wanted air, a moment, a walk through silence. But something pulled him to this building, a place he hadn't entered through the side entrance in years. Maybe it was instinct, maybe memory, maybe just the need to be somewhere that didn't echo with politics. As he walked toward the dim side door, he caught something in the corner of his eye, a figure, hunched over, struggling with a large trash bag. Traoré paused. The hallway light flickered above the man. The bag resisted as the man tried to lift it. He was older, moved with a limp. Traoré watched him for a second, just enough to feel something twist quietly in his chest. The man leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Without thinking, Traoré stepped forward, quickly pushing open the glass door with both hands. It creaked, startling Samuel, who flinched and turned around, caught off guard. Before Samuel could speak, Traoré walked right up and grabbed the other end of the trash bag. Their eyes met for the first time, one filled with surprise, the other with quiet determination. "Let me help," Traoré said, his voice low but clear. Samuel froze, blinking. He looked at the young man holding the trash bag beside him, then looked again. His lips parted slightly, confusion slowly spreading across his face. "Sir," Samuel whispered, hesitant, "this is my job." Traoré didn't let go. His grip on the bag remained steady. He looked down at it, then back at Samuel and said, almost like a friend, And helping is mine. Samuel didn't know what to say. His fingers loosened. Together they lifted the bag and began walking down the corridor, side by side. No cameras in sight, at least none they noticed. For a moment, there was no president, no janitor, just two men walking through a quiet building under flickering lights, sharing a load that had been too heavy for one. And from somewhere high above, a little red light on an old CCTV camera blinked quietly, still recording. As they moved down the corridor together, Samuel glanced sideways at the young man holding the other end of the trash bag. His eyes scanned the familiar face, cautiously putting pieces together in his mind, but he said nothing. Maybe he didn't believe it. Maybe he thought it couldn't be real. Why would the president be here, helping carry garbage? The hallway stretched long before them, and they moved in near silence, their footsteps barely whispering against the tiled floor. Halfway down, they reached a small spill near the water cooler, probably from a leaky cup someone left behind. Samuel paused and turned to the cleaning cart nearby, ready to mop it up quickly before the young man noticed. But Traoré was already moving. He stepped ahead, grabbed the mop without hesitation, and swiped it across the floor in 2 clean strokes. Then he leaned it back against the wall like he'd done it 100 times before. Samuel blinked, confused. "You don't need to do that." "I know," Traoré replied, brushing his hands on his pants. "But I saw it needed doing." They both chuckled, softly, almost shyly. A strange warmth passed between them. The kind you feel when someone sees you, not just notices you, but really sees you. They reached the service elevator. It was working. Traoré pressed the button, and the metal doors creaked open. As the bag thudded inside, Samuel finally found his voice. "You're not here for inspection, are you?" "No," Traoré replied. "I just needed a walk. There were too many lights where I was." Samuel nodded slowly. He understood. Sometimes light can be blinding. He stepped into the elevator. Traoré followed, standing beside him. The doors slid shut, and the 2 men stood quietly, one holding a mop, the other pressing the button for the basement floor. As the elevator hummed downward, Samuel finally spoke again, more softly this time. "You remind me of someone I used to know." Traoré smiled, eyes forward. "Maybe I knew him too." Ding. The doors opened. A rush of musty air greeted them. The smell of stored files, cleaning fluids, and forgotten papers. They stepped out and walked to the dumpsters. As they tossed the bag inside, Samuel turned to thank him, but Traoré was already pulling up another smaller bag that had slipped beneath the cart. "This one too?" he asked. Samuel nodded slowly, still stunned into silence. As they made their way back up the stairwell, Samuel glanced up at the ceiling corner where the security camera sat, still blinking. He thought of all the times it had watched him, all the nights he had limped past it, invisible. Tonight, he wondered if anyone would ever notice what it saw. Without a single news crew or press release, the president of Burkina Faso walked side by side with a janitor, still holding that mop. Neither realized it yet, but that quiet act of humanity had already begun rippling far beyond the walls of the old building. By sunrise, the building stood as it always had, quiet, worn, unnoticed. But somewhere in the early hours, a low-level security technician watching the overnight footage had paused. He rewound the tape. There it was again. A moment, blurry but unmistakable. A man in a hoodie helping the janitor, mopping the floor, carrying trash. No guards, no cameras following him, except this one. The technician leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Wait, is that—" Within minutes, the footage had been clipped, muted, and passed discreetly through a few hands. By the time the sun rose over Ouagadougou, the video surfaced on social media. Not with a bang, but with a whisper. Is this really Traoré? What was he doing there? Who's the janitor? The internet did what it always does. It lit up. Some called it a staged stunt. Others argued it looked too raw, too real. But what no one could deny was the power of the moment. Burkina Faso's president silently helped a janitor at midnight with no cameras and no words, just action. But the real twist came just hours later. An old photograph surfaced, grainy, slightly faded. taken decades ago. A young classroom filled with barefoot children, their eyes wide with hunger and hope. In the corner of the photo stood a man, tall and proud, holding a chalkboard. Someone zoomed in. There he was, Samuel. In the center of the class, among the children sitting cross-legged, was a small boy, his face familiar, his expression focused. Ibrahim Traoré. Within hours, national news outlets confirmed it. The janitor captured in the viral video wasn't just a janitor. His full name, Samuel Yarrow, a former school teacher from the southern provinces, retired early, disappeared from the education system almost a decade ago. What no one had known, what no one had cared to ask, was why. Years earlier, after losing his wife to illness and facing financial hardship, Samuel had left his village and come to the city to find work. The pension system failed him. His name was lost in files. To survive, he took a janitor's job in a government building. No one knew he was once a teacher. No one asked. He had once taught the poorest children in the country. He had fed them from his own pocket, and among them was a boy named Ibrahim, a boy he once gave his last pair of shoes to during a rainstorm, a boy who never forgot. And that boy, now president, had unknowingly helped the same man who once lifted him when no one else did. By evening, the story wasn't just viral, it was electric. People wept, commentators argued, children in schools recited Samuel's name like a legend. In a press briefing that night, when asked about the video, Ibrahim Traoré simply said, "I didn't recognize him at first, I was just helping, but maybe some part of me did remember." He paused, then added, "The world forgets too easily. But I never forgot how I got here, and who helped me." That moment was no longer about a mop or a trash bag. It became something else, an echo of a buried truth, now crashing loudly into the present. And Samuel Yarrow, the janitor nobody noticed, was suddenly the most recognized face in Burkina Faso. By the following morning, a sea of reporters stood outside the modest building where Samuel had worked in silence for nearly 8 years. But he wasn't there. Samuel was at home, sitting on a cracked wooden chair outside a one-room flat, watching the sunrise with a mug of weak tea in his hands. The television inside played on low volume, cycling endlessly through footage of him and Traoré. His grandchildren sat nearby, staring at him differently, not like the quiet man who returned late and left early, but like someone who had just shifted the course of their future. At 9 a.m., a convoy of black vehicles pulled up to his building. Neighbors stepped out of their doors, eyes wide. It was the president, but this time, not alone. Cameras followed him. So did ministers, officials, and the nation's press. Samuel stood as Traoré stepped forward and, without hesitation, embraced him. The cameras flashed, but not before capturing the moment that truly mattered. Two men, bound not by position or power, but by history. One who had taught in silence, the other who had listened without knowing the cost. Traoré turned to the cameras. "This man," he said, "is the reason I ever opened a book. He believed in us when we had nothing. He taught in broken classrooms. He gave more than he had, and when the system failed him, we all failed him." Then, he reached into his pocket and unfolded a small document. "I am here to correct that." He handed Samuel a certificate, an official declaration of lifetime pension and housing, issued in Samuel's name. The crowd erupted, some clapped, others cried, but the moment didn't end there. Traoré turned to his ministers and said, "Today we start something bigger. Today we begin a national search, not for new heroes, but for forgotten ones, for the teachers who shaped this nation and were left behind." And so, a movement began. Within weeks, hundreds of teachers across Burkina Faso, retired, overlooked, underpaid, were rediscovered, honored, and supported. Samuel's story sparked television specials, school parades, and art murals. Young people began collecting stories from their elders, tracing the roots of forgotten educators. In classrooms across the country, teachers were no longer invisible, they were pillars. And in the quiet government building where the story began, the CCTV footage, once just a routine archive, was printed as a still photo and framed. Two men, one holding a trash bag, the other holding a mop. No titles, no speeches. Just a simple caption beneath it that read, "Kindness remembers what power forgets." In a world where power often forgets its roots, one moment of quiet kindness reminded a nation of what truly matters. And in that still frame of a janitor and a president, Burkina Faso saw not just humility, but history honoring itself. If this story moved you, hit like, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more stories that make you feel